Hey kids! All right, so now that you're past the mid-module, we're going to change topics and move from multiplication into division. So lesson 16 is about mental strategies for multi-digit whole number division, and it runs into 17 and 18 because we're doing division the whole time, but we're going to be using basic facts to approximate quotients with two-digit divisors. It's this whole strategy about like, how do I figure out what number goes in the quotient? So then when I start talking about quotient, kids are like, what's that? So the quotient is the answer to a division problem. And in a bracket, it's going to be set up like this, that the divisor is on the outside, the dividend is on the inside. This is the whole that is being shared. And then the quotient's the answer. Sometimes it's set up like this. The dividend comes first. This is where the whole is. Then the division sign. Then the divisor. This is the number doing the dividing. And then the quotient comes over here. It's the answer. So however it is set up, the dividend is being shared. It's going to be shared equally or equally used. These might be words you would see in a word problem. Or distributed equally. And so you really want to look for that equally shared and given away. So that is our little introduction. Of course, you can always pause it to write all that stuff. But I have better notes from another year, and it's kind of like, well, this isn't great. That was the better beginning. This beginning was terrible because I was probably in a hurry. So then I just have some sample problems here that are really kind of jumping into the lesson. So real easy stuff like, well, 30 divided by 10. Well, that's really easy. And so we're looking today in lesson 16 at the patterns of zeros. And so sure, that's real easy with 3. 430 divided by 10. Again, I have a 0 here and a 0 here. So it's really just 43 divided by 1 for 43. So what happens if you start having more zeros? Well, if you have 4,300 divided by 100, they both have 100 on them. And so what ends up happening is you have these zeros, and I call them like they're kind of offsetting. So there's enough on both sides that they match. 2 here, 2 here, so they come off. Now, how is this possible? It's because down below, I'll show you in a minute. So you get 4,300 divided by 100 is 43. 43,000 divided by 100, this is where you have to watch out. 3 zeros here, 2 here. So they don't equally offset. So you're going to have an extra one, and that's why you have one in your answer. So we'll go over this in my class, but if you're a subscriber, then your teacher may not cover it, and they may cover it. I don't know. So for 16, we're using divide by 10 patterns for multi-digit whole number division. So looking for the tens, looking for the hundreds. So you'll be setting it up with these place value discs. I thought this was kind of weird when I first started doing it. I'm like, why? There's so much writing. But this is what you'll be doing a few times in the book today. It's taking a number apart and creating these discs. So you take your 420. 1, 2, 3, 4. 400. 20 is 10 and 10. So again, we're using all these 10 patterns. And then you divide, put your division sign, by what? 10. That's the divisor. This whole thing is the dividend. It's really huge. That's why I don't like it, because it takes up too much space. But anyway, this is what they want you to do. They want you to take each of these discs and do its own division problem, because they're easy when they're broken down. So 100 divided by 10 is 10. Write your answer in the quotient. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10. So that you have all of these are taken care of, and now you have 40. But you still have to do the 10 divided by 10 to get 1, and 10 divided by 10, and I can't even follow the line, to get 1. So your whole quotient is over here for 42. So that you're showing the way that each disc is shared, okay? That's the picture. Then down here, this is where you really can, I'm all about that shortcut, okay? And so this is where you're going to be able to put it into a ratio, and this is why it makes sense. So if I was to take 420 and divide by 10, what I would really want to do first is just divide each number by 10 to eliminate the 0. When I divide 420 by 10, I get 42. When I divide 10 by 10, I get 1. And that makes this problem so much more simple. Then I get 42. That's my answer. So we're taking this, and then we're doing this in the shortcut. I'm all about the shortcut. So look for matching or offsetting zeros. If it's 10 and 10, then I will just slash them. That's what I do. So then it becomes 42 divided by 1, and that's our easy problem. Now you could certainly set up the standard algorithm and do 420 divided by 10 to get 42, and you can just prove it all day long if you want to, but that's not what today's lesson is about. It's about having these offsetting zeros or watching for the zero patterns. So another sample problem, 24,000 divided by 600. Then you look for the zero patterns. 2 here, 2 here. Only take off what will match because you can only divide by that multiple of 10 to fix the ratio. Okay, so you can take off 2 on each side, which creates 240 divided by, and then I forgot. Okay, divided by, I was going to say 600. Okay, so before I move on too far, 600, we're going to take apart and make 2 pieces out of it. So separate it into 2 parts. So take the 100 out of 600, and that's the offsetting 0 part, okay? Then you just have to divide by the 6, and that's that quick fact. Okay, so in the book, they have this whole section, and you'll probably be doing this in the book as well, in your workbook for the problem set today. So take the 600 and make it in 2 pieces. That's essentially what we're doing to get rid of those zeros. Then you have a super simple problem, 24 divided by 6 equals 40, because it's 24 divided by 6 is 4, and then we have the 10 on the end. And of course, if you want to check it, do the standard algorithm. Same here. Watch out for all the zeros. 180,000 divided by 9,000. They each have these thousands. So take out the 1,000. Take out the 1,000. Simplify, get down to 180 divided by 9. Here's the 9. Here's your simple fact. 18 divided by 9 is 2, and then there's the extra 0. So those are the notes for today. It's kind of a lot, but it's really important that you understand what you're doing. So after we do a few of these, I'll slap down the answer book and we'll go through it, but you should understand how to draw the place value discs when you're dividing to show your thinking. And then it says draw the place value discs for A and C. You may draw discs on your personal whiteboard to solve the others if necessary. So for A and C, we'll definitely do that. I'll probably do it A, B, and C. So 500 divided by 10, we're going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And we're going to divide by 10. Okay? So in doing this, 100 divided by 10 is 10. And then you do that with all the crazy lines. That's what they were for before. 10, 10, 10, 10. And I don't have anything extra, so it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And so that's your final answer. Okay? Now if we did the same thing over here, you have 2 digits to work with, so you can have your hundreds place, or your 1, 2, 300s. That's 300 there. And then 60 would be 6 tens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you could keep doing this for all these if it really helps you understand what's happening or helps you find the quotient correctly. This whole thing is my dividend. This is my divisor. And now this is going to be my quotient over here. But remember, we have to do it in phases. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 100 divided by 10 is 10, and 100 divided by 10 is 10. So that's these three. Now those are done. Now we have all these. 10 divided by 10 is 1, and then 1, and 1, and 1, and 1, and 1. And all of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are your place value discs to help you see that you have 36 for your answer. Okay, so I'm hoping that these are helpful. Another thing with C is that when you have all these out here, you don't have to do 12 of the thousands, although I have done that before. You could do a 10,000 and then 2 1,000s. And I always write my number first when it gets bigger, otherwise I can't squeeze it into the little circle. And then I have to divide by 100, okay? So take your 10,000 and divide it by 100. And again, if I have 2 zeros here and 2 zeros here, I'm going to end up with my 100 over here, okay? And then we have 1,000 divided by 100, and so that's going to be 10 for that, and 10 for that. So you have 120. Okay? Now for the rest of these, because we don't have to do the place value discs, let's work on this pattern finding. So if I have 100 here and I have 100 here, that's 2 zeros and 2 zeros. I now am left with 4,500 divided by 1. Well, isn't that something? It's very easy. So if you understand the discs, great. I hope it helps. If you don't need it, simplify the problem as quickly as you can and then move on. This is all about patterns, okay? At the bottom of the page, you can see the objective is to locate the patterns and work with them. Okay, so 3 zeros, this is 1,000, so I'm going to take these 3 zeros, which I also have, and that leaves us with 700 divided by 1. 700, easy. 2 zeros here, 2 zeros here. Why can we do that? Because they are matching. I can divide both by 100 and simplify this. And all of these are ones. 1, 1. 1 is the divisor. So it makes it really simple. And then we end up with, again, a very easy answer. Now this is kind of a long lesson, so we're blazing through it. Now we don't use the place value discs anymore. Divide, the first one is done for you. But what we're going to do is like what I almost skipped in the beginning of the lesson. We're going to separate the divisor into 2 parts, the 10 or the 100 and whatever the other fact is. Okay, so that we're going to simplify. This is where you're taking off that 0, and then you have your simple division. So 12,000 divided by 100 divided by 3. So we're taking the 300 and putting it in 2 parts. To identify how many zeros I can take off, I can take off 2, and that leaves me with 120 divided by 3, which is really 12 divided by 3 for 4, and the 0 comes down. Okay? 12,000 divided by 3,000. Let's break this into parts. First 1,000, then 3. 1,000, 1,000. Now I have 12 divided by 3, which is 4. Hope that makes sense. I wish you were here so you could ask questions. Like, hey, what are you doing? Here is a 70. So I'm going to take this big number, divide it by only 10. I only have 1 0, so I can only use 10. And then the 7. Okay, so we're taking out the 10, 100, or 1,000. So take out 1 0. It's 1 0. So that turns this, it's still 5, 6, 0, 0, 0 divided by 7. This is our quick division fact. And that's 56 divided by 7 is 8. Put the comma in, sorry about that. 0, 0, 0. That's what's left. Okay, so we still have 1,000 because we only took off 10. Even bigger. Well, it's still the same dividend, 560,000 divided by 700 this time. So I'm going to take out 100 and then divide by 7. I'm taking out 100, so that's 2 zeros. Okay, which leaves us with 5600 divided by 7, which again, same answer, but 2 zeros. Hopefully that's pretty clear for you. Okay, next time we have the same dividend, 560,000, but it's divided by 7,000. The 7 just keeps getting bigger and bigger, okay, just like it did up on top. But this time I have 3, so oops, I should separate it. My bad. Get going. 1,000 and then 7. So here's where we're taking out the 3 zeros, and then we are left with 560 divided by 7. That's your 8, and we're left with 10. Okay, different on the bottom. Moving on. We have different numbers, different quick facts. So you can still separate your divisor. 28,000 divided by first 10, then 4. So if you guess that was only going to be 10, you're right. Okay, it's got 1 0 to take out. So 2,800 now divided by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, and each 0 still is going to be there because it's a pattern. 450,000 divided by a 100 and then a 5. 2 zeros here, 2 zeros here, slash, slash. That leaves us with 4,500 divided by 5. Easy peasy. That gives you 9 and the 2 zeros that are left. 900. 810,000 divided by first 1,000, then divide by 9. As long as we take care of all those zeros, makes it really easy. 81 divided by 9 is 9, and the 0 comes down. I just want to say, any questions? Okay. Next, we have some word problems. So the floor of a rectangular banquet hall has an area, remember how they're throwing that in all the time, of 3,600 meters squared. Okay, so if I was to draw the area, I would say the whole square middle, that's all the inside squares, 3,600 meters squared. The length is 90. So let's say this one is 90 meters. Notice you don't put a square here. This is linear length. So it's only the one direction as opposed to, and not the band, I'm talking about one direction, literally like one line here. The other side is the width that we don't know. Don't know the width. Okay. So what do you do with this? Well, if you know that this is the area, okay, essentially what you have to do with area equals length times width is figure out what you're multiplying by. 90 times what is going to give you 3,600. So how you solve that is by doing the opposite operation. So I would do 3,600 divided by 90, and that would give me my width. So here's our problem, just like we've been doing. And we can separate this into 10 and 9. Take off that. That gives us 360 divided by 9. That gives you your quick little fact here, 40. And so 40 is your length, the width of the banquet hall, 40 meters. Identify that. You can even fill it in. Okay, a square banquet hall, square. Square is different. Square has 4 sides the same length. Square banquet hall has the same area. That means it looks like this, and it's all perfect, and it's 3,600 meters squared. So what is the length of the room? Now, they didn't give us the length or the width, but what I do know about a square is that these two sides are equal. Same length and width. So what times what equals 3,600? So trying to slow you down there so you could think about it. What times what is 36, and it's the same here as it is here. Oops, there go the lights again. I'll take a lap around the room, wave my arms, turn the lights on. Don't want you guys getting bored. Okay, what times what is 36? And you know it has to be the same number because it's got to be for a square. So it's going to be 6 times 6. But it can't just be 6 times 6 because that would only leave me with 36. What about that? What about that? So if you put your extra 0 here and on each side, then your 60 times 60 would give you that 6 times 6 is 36, and then that's 1 0, and that's the other. Okay? So it's just kind of you can do trial and error on that one. So what is the length of the room? The length is 60 meters. Okay, next, a third rectangular banquet hall has a perimeter of 3,600 meters. Now, perimeter is the distance around all 4 sides, okay? And it's not a square, it's rectangular. What is the width if the length is 5 times the width? What is the width if the length is 5 times the width? Length. So we did something like this in the previous lesson, I think in 15, and it's using the tape diagram to help you figure out what's missing. Now, the perimeter is not just the width of one side and the length of another, but it is the width of 2 sides and the length of 2 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So how many total units do I have here? If I call this a unit, let's call this a unit. How many units do I have here? I have 5. Plus 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. Now, I do have one important piece of information, that it's 3,600 meters, okay? And I'm going to take that whole thing and divide it by 12. And so one way the book kind of does it is they'll call it 12 units is equal to 3,600 meters. I usually just start jumping right in and doing the work. Okay, so then you have to do the division. 3,600 divided by 12 to get 1 unit. And so if you do that, I don't have any zeros that offset, so it's really 36 divided by 12. And then we have 300. So if 1 unit is 300 meters, it just says what is the width if the length is 5 times the width. So the length would be, the width would be 300 meters. Okay, because this is the width of one side and that's the width of the other. So there is one more page. I know, sorry, it's a super long one. Let's try to go fast. Oh, I remember this part. It's pretty easy. 2 fifth graders solved 400,000 divided by 800. Carter said the answer is 500, while Kim said the answer is 5,000. Who has the correct answer? Don't you want to know? Explain your thinking. So here's the problem. 400,000 divided by 800. So what's happening here? Oh, I know what's happening, yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's take this apart and do 100 and then 8. And so if I have 2 and 2, cha-cha, that leaves me with 4,000 divided by 8. Now watch out, watch out. 40 divided by 8. It's not 4 divided by 8, it's 40 divided by 8. That's 5. Then I have 0 and 0. That's where you get the 500. Carter is correct because Kim has not counted her zeros properly. So basically, you have to remember that 40 divided by 8 is the basic fact, not 4 divided by 8. Okay, so if you only look at the zeros, you're going to miscount. Now they said, well, what if we made it more challenging? And it's 4 million divided by 8,000. So we have an extra 0 here on the 4, if we have a 4 million here and then the 8,000. So each one has an extra 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 divided by 8,000. Let's take this apart. Divided by 1,000, then divided by 8. So 3 zeros and 3 zeros. That leaves us with 4,000 divided by 8 again. So because we added a 0 onto each one, we get the same answer. Still 40 divided by 8 for 5, and then the 2 zeros come down. So it's the same quotient, 500, because both sides changed. Okay? So I know you guys are anxious to move on with your lives, but that is lesson 16 in a big nutshell. I hope this is helpful. Bye-bye.